You big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat.
Have you noticed how a single basketball star can ignite conflict, alliances, and dramatic turnarounds among some of the greatest names in women's sports history? Cheryl Miller's recent comments about Sheryl Swoopes and Caitlin Clark have shaken the community in a massive way.
Some of your peers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact.
Right.
How can you separate the two? It's kind of hard, right?
I used Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummies.
It gets crazier. Miller, revered by fans everywhere, started calling out Swoopes' long-standing critique of Clark. The aftermath has fans buzzing, not just about the clash between two legends, but also about how the Indiana Fever's future seems destined for unprecedented success.
3-time Player of the Year, 2-time National Championship, 2-time Tournament MVP, first woman to dunk in an organized game, gold medalist, and that's just a few.
Let's explore the entire roller coaster, from Swoopes' puzzling claims to Miller's emphatic defense of Clark, and why it spells huge changes for the league.
If we say her stats are today, 20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But
That's crazy.
5.6 turnovers.
Those are her numbers.
But to me, that's not dominating.
The ongoing feud began with Sheryl Swoopes leveling one accusation after another at Caitlin Clark for about a year. Swoopes portrayed Clark as a 25-year-old overshadowing legitimate college seniors, insisted Clark took an improbable 40 shots a game, and even suggested that experienced players wanted no part of the Indiana Fever's environment.
Swoopes was known for being a hater of Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever in Clark's rookie season, even insinuating that players would flee the team.
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that player set it.
Okay.
Each claim quickly fell apart upon close examination, yet Swoopes remained relentless. While fans anticipated pushback from within the league, the breadth and intensity of these accusations left the basketball world in disbelief.
How much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old.
People wondered if anyone of high standing would ever refute the avalanche of misinformation and recenter the narrative on Clark's actual on-court accomplishments.
Well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record.
Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark pressed forward, racking up assists, piling up rookie records, and, ironically, shaping the entire WNBA conversation while not uttering a word against Swoopes' remarks.
So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
The tension didn't come solely from Swoopes' inaccurate age and stats claims. She claimed that the Indiana Fever's locker room atmosphere was on the brink of collapse thanks to Clark's so-called media circus.
But this is what Sheryl Swoopes said last year.
That's not my point. There's a lot of other shit going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be. Very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't want to be here. This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Yet rosters showed the opposite. Influential veterans joined, re-signed, or at least expressed optimism about the team's direction. Publicly, players spoke about a bright future rather than an internal meltdown. This discrepancy between Swoopes' vision of chaos and the Fever's actual trajectory confused many observers. Media personalities slowly recognized that Swoopes' warnings never materialized.
DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, all joined the Indiana Fever.
During that same period, journalists began pressing her for clarity on any tangible evidence behind her claims, but she stood by them, making the scenario even more perplexing. Fans looked to the upcoming season, both curious and apprehensive, to see if the doomsday scenario would happen or if Clark would keep thriving despite the chatter.
Is she getting hyped? Yes.
Yeah.
But she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time, sometimes maybe more than you were.
Right.
Everything changed when Cheryl Miller stepped onto a major platform, specifically the All the Smoke podcast. While the broader basketball community considered Swoopes a venerable icon, Miller's credentials are equally, if not more, imposing. Multiple national championships, Olympic gold, Hall of Fame status, and an aura of authenticity that resonates through every statement she makes. Her arrival in this drama felt monumental.
And the media, they had their narrative. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
Right.
She unleashed a pointed commentary, memorably describing certain critics with phrases akin to "come on, you big dummies," which instantly dominated social media discussions. The public sensed a shift. No longer was the negativity swirling unchallenged. A widely respected voice had intervened, and the conversation began pivoting from Swoopes' questionable claims to evidence-based praise of Caitlin Clark.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised.
Miller's critique carried a heavy weight because she had first-hand knowledge of Clark, having coached her during the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game. That experience went far beyond a casual conversation. Miller observed Clark's real-time decisions, interactions with teammates, and problem-solving when under pressure. In place of the images Swoopes painted of a ball hog or an age-defying fifth-year college star, Miller witnessed a dedicated player with extraordinary court awareness.
I didn't know how talented she was and how well she sees the game in a 3D version, thinker. Defensively, a lot better than I thought and gave her credit for. So watching her and just spending a little time.
She lauded Clark's advanced passing style, describing it as a 3D version approach, which stands out in a league where rookies often need time to adjust to faster, smarter defenses. For Miller, these glimpses into Clark's mind were far more revealing than any rumor or speculation. She also emphasized Clark's willingness to adapt mid-game, a trait not always seen in younger athletes. By the end of that All-Star stretch, Miller left with the certainty that the negativity swirling around Clark was unfounded.
And one thing, guys, that I've learned is to step back and let these kids be themselves. Look, I speak when I'm spoken to. I'm not sitting up there knocking on anybody's door, offering my advice because I don't know.
But it gets even more illuminating to learn how Cheryl Miller stepped in personally. After the Indiana Fever secured a hard-fought victory that seemed to validate Clark's leadership, Miller recalled a powerful moment of relief and pride in the rookie's eyes.
That these young ladies who are at the upper tier players, I hope and pray that they have a solid foundation and they know guys who they are, because you know how vicious it is out there.
Clark sought Miller out as if she'd finally found a comforting ally after enduring months of public second guessing. Miller's recollection of hugging Clark and saying how proud she felt drives home just how lonely that path had been for a star handling so much public scrutiny. Miller underscored that Clark never requested the crown of face of the league. Instead, it was thrust upon her by unstoppable performances and a roaring fan base. From that vantage point, the negativity Clark had endured appeared all the more baffling.
I can't fault her for what she was given, but look, as much as she was given, you can't tell me if that door would have swung the other way where she didn't live up to the hype.
Right.
Come on, folks are still waiting for her to fall.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, fans questioned whether such relentless negativity from a storied figure like Swoopes could undermine a rookie's morale or even strain the rest of the team.
With that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat.
In many sports, prolonged controversies can poison locker room chemistry. Yet Indiana's front office continued signing experienced players, while the entire atmosphere thrived under fresh leadership. Miller's supportive stance signaled that, if anything, the external drama was overshadowed by real synergy within the team. She observed how quickly the Fever embraced a fearless identity, matching Clark's energy instead of resenting it. That fearless approach is precisely what fosters winning cultures, especially for a franchise looking to rise from the bottom of the league to genuine playoff contention. The reason all of this flared up in the first place appears rooted in Swoopes' refusal to correct errors. Even Nancy Lieberman, who cherished a decades-long friendship with her, asked for a public retraction or factual clarification.
And I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend and I said, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. Facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And so our relationship, it pretty much is not happening at this point. I tried to talk to her at the Final Four.
Right.
She didn't want to talk to me.
That private outreach ended with a permanent rift. The heartbreak Lieberman expressed was a reminder of how deeply this drama cut into personal relationships. Observers suspect Swoops might have felt overshadowed or threatened by the unstoppable wave of recognition and fresh faces reshaping the WNBA. Others think she doubled down out of simple pride, unwilling to appear as if she'd caved to critics.
You know, I've known Cheryl since she was in college. I helped do her shoe deal with Nike in 1993, took her to her first ESPYs. I've known Cheryl, I've coached her, have a lot of respect for her.
The outcome, however, is that her vendetta collided with data-driven broadcasts and the testimonies of numerous players who vehemently contradicted her claims. Over time, the tension escalated into a sort of standoff, Swoops persisting in her narrative while players, coaches, and analysts chipped away at it with facts. Lieberman's involvement highlights just how dire the situation had become. She attempted a discreet resolution, presumably believing the matter to be minor enough to fix if Swoops would just clarify the correct details. But that phone call sank a friendship, showing how unwilling Swoops was to budge. Lieberman later replaced her on commentary, offering stats-based analysis that more closely reflected Clark's real shot counts, age, and achievements.
Now, she hated on Caitlin Clark so bad last year that they literally pulled her from a Dallas Wings broadcast.
For fans, it was a relief to see at least one part of the WNBA's coverage returning to fact-based critiques. The entire spectacle, ironically, made even casual spectators realize how essential it is to maintain accuracy in sports reporting. After all, if fundamental data can be so thoroughly twisted by a legend, where else might fans be misled? Fans have begun speculating about whether the team is on track for a deep playoff run or perhaps an outright championship in the near future. Miller's words, given her proven track record as a winner, hold far more credibility than the dire warnings that Swoops originally shared. One major lesson is that fact-checking matters. The entire debacle came to a head once the numbers, like Clark's actual shot attempts or her real birth date, were cross-verified. Fans realized that certain commentators had never looked deeply at the real data. This outcome has prompted watchers to demand that media outlets provide more rigorous coverage. If you feel relieved that Cheryl Miller dismantled the swirling myths around Caitlin Clark, share your reaction in the comments. Are you convinced the Indiana Fever could make a deep playoff run or even ascend to championship status sooner than expected? Do you believe negativity from older legends will fade as more evidence accrues? Hit that subscribe button if you want more in-depth women's basketball breakdowns. Because from the look of things, we're stepping into an era where unstoppable rookies and open-minded legends create synergy, and gatekeepers can't overshadow the undeniable facts. Caitlin Clark's ascent and the unity from icons like Miller signal that next-level excitement is right around the corner for the WNBA.